So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions played their first preseason game last night, and I was lucky enough to be in the crowd. I was lucky enough to be at Ford Field and witness the Detroit Lions' first preseason victory in person. Now, of course, because I was in person, I was able to see the entire field. I was able to watch the sidelines, and I was able to get quite a few takeaways that you wouldn't see from the broadcast angle or the broadcast itself. So today, I wanted to take a look at my takeaways from the game, all the players that I noticed, all the standouts, everything going on in week one of the 2023 Detroit Lions preseason, and just kind of do a deep dive into the first week, take a deep dive into the players that stood out both positively and negatively, and just give a good overarching view of the first game of the season. Now, this video, I can already tell you, is going to be a very long one. I'm writing the script for this. We are over probably double what we typically are, so strap in for a long Detroit Lions video. And with that being said, let's kick it off with the overall takeaways. Week one of the 2021 preseason was a victory for the Detroit Lions, a 21-16 victory over the New York Giants. Now, it wasn't always pretty. The Detroit Lions threw 2 interceptions and had 2 turnovers as an offense, as well as having 1 turnover on downs, technically calculating up to 3 turnovers on the day, while the defense had just 1 takeaway, but did have a 4th down stop in the second quarter. The defense was incredibly strong all day, while the offense had a very, very poor start, but did find a little bit of success in the latter half of the game. Specifically, in the second half, the offense really picked up and really started to show that they were capable of making some plays as well. Now, starting off with the offensive side of the ball, as I said, the offense struggled very early, only scored 3 points in the first half and ended up going into the half down 13-3. They threw 2 interceptions, one being on the first play of the game, as well as having a turnover on downs on the second drive of the game. The offense only ended up scoring 1 offensive touchdown throughout 4 quarters, and that touchdown came on the final drive of the game, led by 4th-string quarterback Adrian Martinez. The offense was a little bit slow, didn't really have that element of the big play, wasn't really consistent or methodical like they were last season, and they really struggled and didn't look like the top 5 offense. A lot of people saw them as the top 5 offense that they were a season ago under Ben Johnson and this offensive structure. Now, although Ben Johnson is kind of the poster child for this part of the video, this is not on Ben Johnson. It is not part of the season for Ben Johnson to scheme up plays. It is not really Ben Johnson's job at this point to have a super complex game plan to really plan around what the Giants do well, right? It's preseason. They're vanilla play calls, but they were play calls that got the wide receivers open. The lack of production wasn't on the play calling. The play calling itself was very strong. It was more of an execution issue. The Detroit Lions wide receiving core had 5 drops in the first game and really didn't help their quarterback out, even when he was making solid throws. Now, Nate Sudfeld didn't have his best performance of his career through 2 interceptions, as I said, one on the very first play of the game and another one when targeting Jameson Williams that was high and behind, and Jameson had very little chance to even touch the football, let alone make the contested catch. The offensive execution, quite honestly, was very poor, specifically from the quarterback. Jameson Williams was open a couple times. I know that Dylan Drummond was open for a touchdown at the end of the half, and there was a lot of plays that were left on the field because of the quarterbacking play by Nate Sudfeld. Speaking of the quarterback, he played just under 3 full quarters of football. Came out with just a minute left in the third quarter, being relieved by Adrian Martinez for the remainder of the football game. Now, throughout 3 quarters, Nate Sudfeld went 15 for 28, throwing for 194 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The accuracy, especially in the intermediate and deep parts of the field, were very, very poor. He wasn't able to hit the deep ball, although he did throw a nice deep ball to Jameson Williams on 1 rep. A lot of the intermediate stuff and a lot of the deep balls that they tried really just didn't seem to be working for him. His decision making as a whole wasn't poor. I thought that he made some good reads even on the poor throws, and I thought that overall his decision making was okay, but the accuracy itself and the actual execution of the throws is where he really struggled last night. Now, he wasn't a good quarterback. He threw 2 interceptions. The first one was not really on him. The pocket got blown up. He got hit in the thigh or the hip area when he was releasing. The ball came out short and, of course, was intercepted on the first play on a designed shot to Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams had no shot at that football. Nate Sudfeld looked at that route the entire time and obviously threw it while being hit. It is partially on him and it is partially on the offensive line. The second one, though, 100% on him. The pocket was clean. Jameson Williams had a step, and Nate Sudfeld threw it high and behind and wasn't able to get the football to number 9. Now, as I said, in the end of the third quarter, Nate Sudfeld was relieved by Adrian Martinez, quarterback number 18 and the 5th official quarterback on the Detroit Lions depth chart as of right now. Now, Adrian Martinez came in, and the first play was a little bit suspect. He was a little bit late on a crossing route and did force Maurice Alexander to take an unnecessary shot on an incomplete pass. But after that, he was very solid. I thought he made a lot of really good decisions, made 2 or 3 really impressive throws, and went 4 for 7 for 37 passing yards with 5 rushes for 14 yards, as well as a rushing touchdown. He had 2 rushes that I thought were really, really impressive. Of course, the first one on his opening drive, that was a 10-yard rush on 3rd and 13. Didn't quite get there, but did show the poise to keep his eyes down the field. And of course, made a quick decision to escape the pocket, try to get the first down. Didn't quite work, but I liked what I saw there with him trying to keep his head up and keep his eyes on his wide receivers. And of course, the second one in the red zone to keep the drive alive on 3rd down, was able to use his legs to break a tackle, step up in the pocket, avoid a tackler, and pick up the first down, putting the Detroit Lions down at the 3, eventually leading to the Detroit Lions touchdown. He having the only offensive touchdown of the preseason so far for the Detroit Lions. He looked very poised in the pocket. He was very accurate on his footballs. I know at least one of his incompletions was a drop. One was a poor throw to Maurice Alexander, or at least a late throw to Maurice Alexander. And I don't remember the third incompletion, but I know at least one of them was just a really poor drop by Maurice Alexander that should have been caught, meaning he probably should have gone 5 for 7, closer to 45 yards. And again, just showed really good poise in the pocket, showed the ability to stay in the pocket, didn't seem very flustered, didn't seem very concerned about the pass rush, despite the offensive line not being great. And I thought he played very well, very much outperformed Nate Sudfeld, and was able to, of course, lead the Detroit Lions on a game-winning 69-yard drive in the fourth quarter to take the lead and eventually win the game. I thought he was very good, and I think he should overtake Nate Sudfeld in this upcoming depth chart release. However, with the signing of Teddy Bridgewater, Dan Campbell has come out and said that will probably eat into Martinez's time a little bit more than it will eat into Sudfeld's time. Now, getting onto the rushing attack, the Detroit Lions really had 4 main running backs last night. As David Montgomery did not play, the Detroit Lions leaned on some of their depth. Devine Azigbo led the Detroit Lions in rushing attempts with 11 carries for 31 yards. He wasn't very effective, but did get a lot of carries and did pick up some short yardage situations time and time again. Benny Snell got some work in the fourth quarter with 6 attempts for 23 yards. Again, not great. Did get a couple goal line attempts where he picked up 1 or 0 yards. Not a great showing by Benny Snell, but did have, again, a first down rush and played pretty well. Jahmyr Gibbs had 6 attempts for 19 yards, picked up a first down on the ground and picked up a first down through the air. It wasn't a great day for Jahmyr Gibbs in his NFL debut, but as I said, the offensive line wasn't great, wasn't giving him a lot of lanes to run through, and did show up as a receiver to pick up a big first down on a third down conversion, and was really able to play well into that role as well. Showed his speed, showed his ability to kind of change direction quickly, showed his decision-making, and looked very smooth and fluid as a runner. And then at Muhammad Ibrahim, the UDFA from Minnesota that everybody was excited to see, had 4 attempts for 9 yards. He did suffer a lower leg injury. It looked like came up limping on a big contact from the New York Giants defender. He was taken off the field, was brought back in for one play, and was kind of shut down by the trainers, taken back to the locker room, and sat on the sideline for the remainder of the game. I'm not sure if it was a major injury, as Mohamed Ibrahim did walk off the field and even returned for a play, but it was very evident that he wasn't 100% healthy for the entire game and wasn't really able to go back in, which is why I think Divine Azigbo got a lot of the carries that would have gone to Mohamed Ibrahim. Now, looking at the receiving leaders, the Detroit Lions had 3 standout receivers yesterday. That is supposed to say 30 yards for Antoine Green, but Chase Cota was the number 1 receiver. 4 receptions for 60 yards, made a couple really nice contested grabs, broke a couple tackles, picked up a couple of first downs, and played really, really well. James Mitchell, the backup tight end, had 4 receptions for 53 yards, 2 of them coming off bootleg rollouts, looking really good as a yak receiver. Got a nice block downfield from Jameson Williams and played really well for the most part when he was targeted. Antoine Green, as I said, had 3 receptions for 30 to 35 yards. I don't remember the exact number, but he was the 3rd receiver on the day and looked pretty good. Was able to catch a screen pass and pick up a first down, was able to kind of work the intermediate routes and pick up a first down, and was really, really solid for what the Detroit Lions asked him to do last night. Now, I do want to specially take a look at Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams had 10 targets, I believe, last night and had 2 receptions for 18 yards, but did have a 2-point conversion that did not count as a reception. So really, he was 3 for 10 with, a couple extra yards and a 2-point conversion. Obviously did have the big drop on the 50-yard throw. Wasn't quite able to pull that one in for the big gain and likely or possibly even a touchdown, but did make up for it with a nice one-handed 2-point conversion. Was able to create some separation, but I don't think everything was necessarily on Jameson Williams. The first interception thrown his way was not his fault. Nate Sudfeld was hit. He did not have a good chance in double coverage to make that reception. It wasn't really his fault. The second one, he had a step on the defender, was open, and Nate Sudfeld did not hit him. It was high. It was behind Jameson Williams' jump for it. Didn't even touch the football when reaching for it. Jameson Williams did not have a great night, but he did create separation. He did have 2 nice early quick passes, and he was able to, of course, get the really big 2-point conversion. His energy was there all night. His blocking and willingness to block downfield was there all night and was very impactful for the runs that did get out and for the bootleg passes that did gain some yardage. He was a good team player. He created separation, and when he wasn't on the field, he was right next to Ben Johnson the entire time. Him and Ben Johnson were talking after every play. He was asking questions after every play. He was very involved even when he wasn't on the field in the fourth quarter, and it was very clear and evident that he was trying to learn. It was very evident that he was trying to get involved in the play calling. He was trying to get involved and understand routes and understand play calls a little bit better, and he was trying to absorb as much information as possible, which is a very good sign for a young wide receiver. Now, is it true that Jameson Williams will probably never have elite hands? Yes. But there are a lot of wide receivers that didn't have elite hands. Devontae Adams had very poor hands in his rookie season. Jamar Chase still doesn't have elite hands despite being arguably a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. There are great wide receivers that don't have elite hands, and this is really Jameson Williams' first time being a premiered wide receiver since all the way back in the national championship of 2022, all the way back in January, over a year and a half ago. He showed a couple of really good things. He showed a willingness to block, showed the ability to be a really, really good teammate. And I think that he's going to get some more work in preseason game 2, get some more work in preseason game 3, and hopefully become a little bit more consistent every single week. Keep working in the offseason, keep working in his suspension, and come back and be able to be a big play threat for the Detroit Lions in his debut against the Raiders on Monday night. We know the separation's there. We know the ability to get open is there. He just needs to be a little bit more consistent with his hands, and he will be a really good wide receiver. Now, the offensive line, as I have mentioned, has been very, very poor. 0 starters played, as all of them were actually, I believe, home with their families. All 5, actually even all 6 of the starting offensive line, fun fact, had a child within the last couple of months. Penei Sewell had one. Halapoli Vaitai had a child. Graham Glasgow had a child. Frank Ragnow had a baby, as well as Taylor Decker and Jonah Jackson. 6 of the starting offensive linemen did not play last night because they were at home with their families, and they kind of did a cool thing during the broadcast and at the field talking about the new members of the Pride. Now, the one player that I think has starting experience that did play was Matt Nelson. Matt Nelson did not play well, gave up a pressure on the first play, leading to an interception, and was just very, very poor. The run blocking was bad. There was consistent pressure on the quarterback, but there was one bright spot. That bright spot was Colby Sorsdale, a player that did not give up very many pressures from what I saw, looked really good in pass protection, opened up some holes in the run game, and was really the lone bright spot of the Detroit Lions offensive line last night. Moving on to the defense. The defense played significantly better than the offense. They had an amazing game, allowing just 16 total points. And even then, that does not tell you the full story. Those 16 points come from a 3-point field goal from the first interception that set the Giants up at the 30-yard line to open the game. 3 points from the turnover on downs that set the New York Giants up at the 35-yard line for their second drive of the game, as well as a 7 points off the interception return into the red zone. And then they finally gave up a true 3-point drive in the fourth quarter with the third and fourth string defense out there. The defense played incredible. Brian Branch was great. Jack Campbell was great. The pass rush, despite not having Aiden Hutchinson or Charles Harris, was great. The defensive line in general was absolutely phenomenal. The secondary made plays on the ball, and the linebacking core flew to the football, made some strong tackles, and were able to make a ton of big plays in the run game, as well as a couple plays in the pass game. Starting off with the defensive line and the pass rush. The defensive line had 5 sacks. Romeo Okwara had 1, Julian Okwara had 3, and Benito Jones had the 5th. The defensive line had 11 tackles for loss in total, with 5 passes defended from the defense, 2 of which came from the defensive line, as well as 1 interception, which was forced via the pressure from, of course, Julian Okwara on the final play of the game. The Okwaras absolutely shined. Julian Okwara especially was unstoppable that game. He put on a pass rushing clinic. He had 3 sacks, could have had 4 on the final play of the game, but the quarterback was able to release the ball, but that pressure turned into an interception, which of course sealed the deal for the Detroit Lions. Le'Veon Wazuriki made his NFL debut after his back surgery and looked really good. He was a great pass rusher, created a couple of pressures, and even was able to get a tackle for loss for himself on the running back. He looked really, really good. It was very fluid, was a really good pass rusher, and honestly surprised me a ton and was able to make a lot of big plays. And Broderick Martin, despite not really having the biggest impact or the biggest numbers, did have a couple really good plays as an anchor in the middle and was able to open up some pass rushing lanes for guys like Romeo and Julian Okwara. Moving on to the linebacking core, this is one that I think a lot of people had their eyes on. Malcolm Rodriguez and Derek Barnes started the game. Alex Anzalone did not dress and stayed out of the game. And, of course, Jack Campbell came in the second and third quarters and truly shined. He had 5 tackles and a pass defended in the first quarter of play for him. He was really good. The depth played really, really well. Rodrigo played great. Derek Barnes played really well. Jack Campbell played well. Jalen Reeves-Maybin was really, really good, and Trevor Nowaski also had a tackle for loss and a couple really good plays. I think is a very strong group overall with some really good depth. They have 5 linebackers that then can actually play defense. Of course, a couple special teams contributors as well. I really think Malcolm Rodriguez had a good game. I think Derek Barnes was great in the run-stopping ability, and Jack Campbell, surprise, is actually a pretty good linebacker. 5 tackles as well as a pass defended in his first quarter of play. Didn't play as much as I think a lot of people thought he might. Played a little bit of special teams, played a little bit of defense, and played really, really well at both. Again, he's having a little bit of a rough camp, kind of taking some time to adjust to the NFL. But hey, turns out your first-round linebacker that Brad Holmes fell in love with and took at the 18th overall selection, turns out that guy is pretty good at football. The linebacking core, I think, is going to be a strength of the defense this year. It's going to have a lot of depth, just like the edge rushing position. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the Detroit Lions use their 4 starting caliber linebackers this season. Now, getting on to the secondary. There was some ups and downs in the secondary. Will Harris struggled a lot. 2 penalties as well as a big third down conversion thrown against him was not ideal for him. Chase Lucas did not play his greatest game either, giving up a couple conversions and giving up a couple big catches on crucial downs. However, the 2 UDFAs absolutely shine, and even, I would say, the 3 undrafted rookie free agents truly signed. Starling Thomas made the start and was targeted just once, had a pass defended, didn't give up a catch all day. He was marked up a lot with Jalen Hyatt, and the 2 of them showed off their elite speed down the field, but Starling Thomas won that matchup every single time. Stephen Gilmore, the undrafted free agent from Marshall, came in the third and fourth quarters and played really, really well. Wasn't targeted once and, of course, didn't give up a single catch. Both of the UDFA corners shined across from each other. The Giants' passing attack really had no answers for the rookie duo, only allowing 135 yards total. And, of course, Brandon Joseph, the undrafted rookie free agent from Notre Dame, coming up with the game-sealing interception. It was a fourth down play. Quarterback had to get rid of it. Brandon Joseph saw it the entire way, made a very easy catch, routine fly ball essentially for himself, but of course still give him credit for actually catching the football, getting down, and sealing the deal for the Detroit Lions defense. Defense, I thought, played very, very well. The cornerbacks outside of Will Harris were very strong. The safeties were very good. Ifeatu Melifonwu was not targeted once and played really good in coverage. Of course, Brandon Joseph had the interception. Gilmore and Thomas were very, very good. And just overall, I think the depth in this secondary is better than it has been in years past. I think Gilmore, Thomas, and Joseph all have a chance of making this roster. Of course, Brian Branch had a couple big hits and a couple really good play recognitions, had the highlight hit in the first quarter. And overall, the entire secondary played lights out, and that was without Cam Sutton. That's without Emmanuel Mosley. That is without, Tracy Walker and Kirby Joseph and Jerry Jacobs, if I hadn't said him already. This secondary is deep. It is talented, and once the starters get here, I think the secondary will be very good and hard to contend with for any offense in the NFL. Now, ending things off with the special teams. The kicking battle, I think, is very close. The kicking battle, I don't think either kicker missed a kick last night. Both Riley Patterson and Parker Romo were very strong in the kicking battle. Maurice Alexander probably ended up making the roster with a 95-yard punt return touchdown. Did a little bit of a flip in the end zone, denied Chase Lucas the high five on the way in, but played very well himself. There was really good coverage all around from the special teams units, didn't allow any big plays on special teams for the Giants, and overall just played a very, very strong game from the special teams as an entire unit. Now, the Detroit Lions in the first week of the preseason, I thought were incredibly impressive. Despite having 2 turnovers, despite having a turnover on down in the first quarter, and despite having the first 2 drives end up in essentially turnovers within or just outside your own red zone, the Detroit Lions fought their way back. They found a way to win this game. The offense struggled, but it was more of an execution issue. The wide receivers looked solid. The tight ends, despite the one drop from Sam Laporta, was really, really strong. The offensive line didn't look great, but the running back showed some ability to create when nothing was available. As I said, the defense truly shined. I think if there was no turnovers, I think if the defense got a fair shot in the first quarter, this game might have been 21-3. This game might have been 21-6. The offense for the New York Giants had very little momentum going for them. And I know it's backups. I know that the Giants were playing their backups. I know that the Detroit Lions were playing their backups, but it really showed how much depth the Detroit Lions have, particularly at the edge rusher position, particularly in the linebacking core, and especially in the secondary. The Lions' edge rushing core might be the deepest in the league. The Lions' pass rush was phenomenal all day because Julian Okwara and Romeo Okwara are our 5th and 6th pass rushers, and those are guys that can get 6 to 10 sacks in a season all by themselves. Right? The linebacking core, Jack Campbell looked really good. Malcolm Rodriguez looked really good. Derek Barnes looked really good. And that didn't include the captain of Alex Anzalone, who, again, did not dress. The secondary did not play Cam Sutton, did not play Jerry Jacobs, did not play Emmanuel Mosley, did not play Kirby Joseph, nor did they play Tracy Walker, and yet they still only allowed 135 passing yards the entire game. The secondary is deep. The linebacking core is deep. The edge rushing core is deep. And this team in general has a lot of really, really strong depth that was put on display yesterday for the entire world to see. The Lions are 1-0 in the preseason. They're 3-0 in 2023. And there's a lot of expectations, a lot of hype going on now in Detroit. And I think it's very much warranted. And I think the Lions, despite having a slow start, definitely showed up last night and showed why they deserve a little bit of the hype and recognition that they are getting. Week 2 of the preseason is going to be on the 18th. It is 6 days away versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am very excited to see what the Detroit Lions do in week 2. Hopefully some of the starters play. Hopefully we get to see Jared Goff, some of the offensive linemen get to play, and hopefully we get to see the starting secondary make a couple of plays. But with all that being said right now, that is all I have for you guys today. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so Thank you so very much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, you are not yet subscribed, obviously you like the Detroit Lions content, so go down below, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment for the algorithm telling me what you thought and what your biggest takeaway was from week 1 of the preseason for the Lions. But with all that being said, that is all for guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.